Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Midas evening event. I think we've got probably just close to 150 people booked on tonight. So we're hoping that if everyone kind of like remembers and comes on. With lockdown almost at the end, there's lots for people to do. So we thank you all for making the time to be here right now. So far, we've got up to about just under 30. So let's just give it a few more minutes to get everyone locked on. Yes, yeah, Bob is come on now. Actually, good to see you, Bob. Bob, just test your sound. Let's see. Can you hear us? Can we hear you?
I can hear you loud and clear, Sam. Thank you for having me.
Okay, great. Yeah, we just saw. Yeah, we did a sound test with everyone, so we know we now have you on and we can hear you clearly. So that's good.
No.
Yes. So yeah, Arti is just running a bit late, so she might come in. If she doesn't,
yeah,
I've stepped in for her. I can get the introduction done for her. Let me just while we're getting people locked on, let me just run the agenda for the evening. Get everyone all cited today. Okay. Again, today the main core of our presentation today would be on making the most of social housing. It's a social housing special 2021. Like I've always said, especially in the last couple of weeks, social housing is a choice most of the time for investors to decide when they do come up with their investment strategy if they're going to do social housing or not. But right now we find ourselves in a situation where it's no longer a choice. People are people find themselves having to do it. So tonight our guest speaker would actually give us how the best strategies to make the most of social housing. So we've got that will be our core message for the evening. How we can make the best of social housing. So again, so just starting now on 7:30, we're getting everyone all registered. The host, myself, Sam Fongho, just giving you a bit of introduction. The next on our agenda will be our sponsors, where we've got Chess Mortgages and we've got Bearded Ladies, our architect, that would do 1 to 2 minute presentation about what they do. I'm not sure investor news is not on. But if we do get him on, we will let you know so he can actually do his presentation. Just quick before we actually come back to our sponsors, I'll just do a quick intro about Midas. Who are Midas? Let's just go down again. Midas Property Group. We organize events. Some of our events are auction events, which we do with auction house and network auction and a few other auction companies that we do events just before the auction starts. We do have events with quite a few local councils. We call them landlord forums, O'Haro, Brand, Barnet, Heverin, you name it. We've done events with so many councils. We are in discussion actually right now with 1 or 2 councils to do a Zoom event for them because most councils thought there's COVID, they're not going to do landlord forums, but their staff have been coming onto our events, so they think, Sam, why are we not doing forums for them anymore under the COVID? Maybe we can do them virtual. So towards the end of January, we will be doing one for Brand Council. You get an email invite to those. Okay, we've done quite a few HMO events in the past. We've got events, commercial property events with Ranjan. We organize introductions to property investing for people that are fresh, that want to leave their permanent jobs and move into full-time property investing. We have speakers on residential and commercial properties. We do support our community to build property portfolios. We have events on how to invest and finance properties where someone like Bob takes the lead on those. HMO got quite a few more events that we do. Well, the good old days when people were allowed to sit next to each other. I can just imagine, and I hope this comes back because, yeah, okay. Apart from doing the events, most of our events, as you know, are always free, and we use those like business development opportunities to have investors. But where we make our money is really in acquiring properties for our database. We do clearance as well. We sell for our clients. If you have a property, we can actually sell it to our database for you, or we sell it to to an auction company for you. You might say, why don't you go to an auction by yourself? But it's a lot better to put your property at auction through a third party for many reasons, which I will not go into details now. But not every property is suitable for every auction, and we would help you make sure that your property is well positioned in terms of how the legal pack is structured and quite a few things, how it's marketed as well. So we can give your property a lot more visibility than if you go straight to the auction. Again, these are some of the old events that we've done in the past. Again, the good old days when people were allowed to sit next to each other. So again, I'm running this part of the event on behalf of Artie that's meant to be doing it. So at this stage, she was meant to be introducing who I am. So I would just skip that. I've said who I am, Sam Fongho. We've got Mike, whom I would actually come back to Mike when we get to his presentation. So for now, welcome, Mike. Thanks for honoring the invitation.
Welcome
to our community today on social housing. So before I come back to a few a full introduction of Mike, what I'm going to do is just go through a few of the news items that Artie had down to do. Let me just look at it. She had an evictions updates, which of course she probably has a news item in her mind, which I don't have notes for it. But I think the key thing here is about 90% loan to value for first-time buyers. Bob, is that something that's very common now? The 90% loan to value.
It's making a comeback, obviously, under the Help to Buy scheme. Okay. So 95% is available, but really, the market changed dramatically 4 or 5 months ago when everybody pulled out the 95 and the 90% market. But this week we've had a massive influx of lenders coming back in at 90%.
Okay, so I'm sure IT has some great items under her sleeve to actually present on this. It's quite, when you have a PowerPoint with just headlines and you're not the one that was meant to be presenting it, so you really don't know where she was coming from. So I think what I'm going to do, because I think she might still join us, I'll probably leave some of this so that if she comes on, she can actually give us more information. Okay, our upcoming events for next year. Okay, we are planning quite a few events early next year. Like I've mentioned about the ones with the councils. We'll probably start doing the forums again because they've realized that it might take a while for us to go back to the home. So they're probably going to do some events. But what we'll do, we're still putting together our speakers. We think the future of the British High Street might be housing. So that will be the topic. So we just need to get the right speakers to do one about maybe half a day on what the high street would look like 2021. And then of course there are a few other events that we are doing with Simon Zucchi on purchase lease options. So we've got quite a fair bit of things planned for early next year. So without much further ado, I think what I'll do, okay, I think Artie's got one of these. What we've been doing, we're not a training company by any stretch of imagination, but recently we've been having quite a lot of approach from people that want to move into properties. So we tend to put a bespoke program, which are run maybe 3 or 4 evenings of people just running them through all investment strategies, and then they can go and focus on the one that they want to focus on. And especially we coach them a lot on property auctions if they want to buy from auctions. But we are not a training company. We just do that as a one-off once in a while. So without much further ado, I will go back to let the let our sponsors give the quick pitch. Bob and Angelene, do you have any PowerPoint presentations? I can stop my share so you can do a share. Or I don't know if do you want to just talk, or do you have a PowerPoint presentation to put up? Bob?
I think on this occasion we'll just talk as it's a limited time frame.
Okay. Yeah, you've got a limited time, so you can talk.
Yeah, as Artie said, just 2 or 3 minutes, so we'll try and be quick. So, my name is Bob Singh. I own Chess Mortgages. We're based in Hillingdon, Middlesex, but we cover all of London, all of UK. So wherever you are, we can help you, even internationally, if you're watching from abroad. We specialise in the complex and the specialist market space. So complex buy-to-let, complex incomes, adverse credit. We do bridging finance, development finance, expat finance if you're looking to invest in UK property from abroad, if you're a British national, or even a foreign national. We do the whole range of buy-to-let products and residential products from a very, very large panel of lenders. And we can help you really with all your needs. So any financial query, give us a call, get in touch with Sam or Artie. They'll give your details to me, and then I'll come back to you and let you know what we can do for you. We've been helping a lot of Midas members lately with all their financing needs. So references, if needed, are available. But as I said, I've been in banking, insurance, and finance now for 40 years, and specializing in mortgages for the last 27 years. I've appeared on LBC Radio, giving people live advice on mortgages. I've been featured in the Daily Mail newspaper. I've also been on Radio 4 and lots of ethnic newspapers and TV channels and radio channels. So when it comes to mortgages, we're quite experienced, and if we can't help you, we'll try and point you in the right direction in that on that rare occasion that we can't help you. We've got access to the high street banks, specialist banks, merchant banks, overseas banks. So come what may, we'll find a home for your mortgage, and we'll really work hard to get you that finance that you need to finish your project.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for that sweet short introduction. We're going to send an email out to everyone that's attending today with links to about 3 of the last YouTubes that Bob's done, so you can actually catch up on Bob's knowledge in greater detail. So thank you for that, Bob. Angelene, our architect sponsor, yes. So tell us.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will do. Hi, good evening, everybody. My name's Angelene, and I'm the founder of Bearded Ladies. I don't have a beard. We are a design studio. We offer full architectural design services, as well as bespoke services such as planning, if you need a valuation surveyor, so RICS. And we're kind of a one-stop shop for you to help you maximise the properties that you are looking at investing in. We also statutory requirements, maximise your PD, and we tell you what you can do at PD, some of it you might not know, including from a house. That's an example of something you can do under PD. Also, what else do we do? We optimize property. So for those that are looking at HMOs, we work with you to maximise the property and make sure that you can get the rooms, particularly space meeting those. We help you with planning gain. If you have a site that you want to maximise in some kind of way and then sell it on for planning, we also do that. We offer desktop feasibility, so we don't actually have to go to site. We can obviously analyse a site that you're looking at and give you feedback as to what could be possible. With that, we work right across London and the UK. We've also worked a little bit in Spain. So anyone that's got any questions regarding architectural services, let me know. Yeah, we'll try and help you guys out.
Okay. Thank you, Angelene. Again, as for Bob, we'll actually send an email with a video with a link to a YouTube channel of the more detailed videos that you've done. And I understand next week you'll be having a daytime event, isn't it? I don't know if you and Artie have agreed a day, but we'll share with people that are here. So it will be a daytime event. If you wanted to hear Angelene speak a lot more about how to design your HMOs, how to design your extensions, and if you have any specific cases for her to actually look at briefly, we'll email you the day that you can actually be on that program to get that done. So thank you for your time, Angelene. So good stuff. Yes, and then again, we'll send Angelene's contact details as well. Okay, so we just going back to the audience, we'll go about 40, just under 50 people now locked in. Just by show of hand, okay, I've got someone that's someone that's put up their hand. Not sure. Julia, she's put up her hands. When the event actually, okay, we've got people that said, did anyone got asked to actually put in a password? Because what's happening, we normally set up a Zoom event so there's no password required. But I've got like 10 people writing to me asking me what's the password to get in. So it looks like Zoom is asking people to put in a password to come in. Did anyone of you use a password to actually log in? If anyone did, just put it into chat. If you actually use a password, let me know what word. It didn't ask me for a password. I thought, yeah, it didn't. I've just got so many people writing to me asking me, what is a password? We haven't got a password on it. So I don't know why Zoom is asking them for a password to log on when we absolutely have no password set on. As soon as, if you have a link, it should allow you to actually get in. So no idea why they've been asked for a password. So all I can do is tell them to come out and try again a few times. Hopefully we'll get them to come in. While there are quite a few people trying, we'll wait before Mike actually starts. Let's see if a few more people can actually join. Before we actually get that, I'm going to do one or two networking and call a few people. I've seen Robert, Julie, they've got their hands up. I'm not sure why, but I'm just going to give them a chance to talk and then see what, oh, the hand has just gone down. Yes, I was going to say, okay, you've got your hands up. Let me, get you to say, okay, why you got your hands up. So, but now, okay, I think you put your hand down. So we're going to, Mike. So just moving on to yourself while we wait for this people to come in. I know my presentation has an introduction on you. I know you have one that's a lot better on your presentation that you can actually do by yourself and introduce yourself. What I'm going to do at this stage, I will probably just hand over to you to do your presentation. How long is your presentation?
I guess it's around an hour, I think.
Okay, yeah. So we've got enough time. You had we went 8 to 9 was actually scheduled. Does that include Q&A or?
Then there'd be sort of Q&A. So it's around an hour plus then there's whatever time for Q&A.
Okay, I think everyone is saying, yeah, I didn't need a password. I had to try it twice. Yeah, Charles, I had to try it twice.
I guess those that needed a password aren't here, so because they haven't got one.
Yeah, because someone said they had to try it a few times to get in. So I think maybe Zoom is probably very busy right now, and so it's a technical issue with Zoom, which I absolutely have no clue what to say to them apart from saying just keep trying, just like Charles Kelly said he had to try a few times to get on. So Mike, without much further ado, I think what I'll do when Mike starts his presentation, you can please feel free to put questions in the Q&A. After the presentation, they will go through the Q&A. And then a few people that have questions that are general and they want to actually talk, they can put up their hands. I'll get them up so they can be interactive and talk to Mike and ask questions. While Mike, actually, for those of us in networking in London, actually, Mike needs absolutely no introduction. He's a well-known person on the networking scene for property investors, and I'll let him come on and introduce himself with his PowerPoint. While you can share a PowerPoint while I talk. And like I said earlier, social housing is a policy or strategy that people decide to go into. When you set up your HMO, you say, I'm all for professional led and no social housing or no benefit tenants or claiming tenants. That's fine, and it's worked so well in the past. But I think right now, going forward, you might find that you might be forced into a strategy that you did not plan for. And as entrepreneurs are people who are supposed to make lemonade when you get given a lemon. So as entrepreneurs, when you get a situation, we don't complain about it. We find a way to make it work best. So we are finding ourselves in a situation where very soon we might actually have tenants that are unemployed, that have to claim. As entrepreneurs, how do we make it work? Do we complain? No, we just listen to Mike right now, and Mike will give us tips and methods how we can make the most out of the situation that is about to come upon us. So Mike, without much further ado, I'll hand over to yourself.
Thank you.
Share your PowerPoint and then introduce yourself.
Yeah, if you could just enable me to share my screen, that would be great.
Okay, let me,
that's why I've been.
Okay, you've not been able to do that. Okay, let me spot change okay. Okay, now that's let me see, Mike. Okay, allowed to pin. Usually it's very straightforward. I'm meant to actually just click on your name and make you a co-host. And for some reason, Zoom is not giving me that option today. Let me just go through.
Sometimes if you go to share screen, it just says allow all.
Yeah, it should.
All panelists, because I guess I'm a panelist.
Yes. Now let me just see. Okay, normally if I select a user, you can make them. Okay, let me go back to share screen. See, does that? Okay, now not for me, but what it should do is I select you. It should tell me how to make you allow it to this. Okay, let me try one. See, I'm meant to make a co-host, but it's not giving me that option. Okay, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make you into an attendee and then bring it back to the panel, see if it changes it. So it might demote you to be an attendee. Okay. Yeah, it's quite good when these technical issues come up. Okay, so I'll make Mike an attendee, then I'll bring him back onto the panel. Okay, now I'll promote it back to the panel. Okay, I'm taking it back to the panel. Let me see right now if it now gives me more options. It still has an okay, allowed to record, allowed to multi-pin, rename, put on hold. It's just not giving me the option for you to share. Actually, I don't know if Archie is on, because Archie actually started the session. Maybe she has overriding power. Archie, are you still on? Because she started the session from home, and the person that started the session would have the most powers to grant rights, because it's not giving me the right to make you a host. Okay, let me just call Archie from home, say, because she's on, but I think she's not really on listening to us. So she might have the overruling powers. So this is I still remember when we had a lockdown. That was like about a few days before the auction house event, and I had Simon Zucchi. So my first Zoom event was like in 4 days, and we had like 500 people booked for the property question time. So yes, so I have had days where I've had to learn Zoom on the fly.
Yes, baptism of fire.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so let me just quickly call her. I think she because the first person that logs onto Zoom as an admin has overriding rights to put people on. Yeah, because she's a host and I'm a co-host, so it's really the host that has the rights to do. Okay, worst case scenario. Okay, she hasn't picked up because she's a host and I am the co-host. But if I take her out, that would probably not still give me the rights that I need. Yes. So let me see. Mike. Yeah, it's really the host that's meant to, because she logged on before me, and between us, when we log in, the first person that logs in gets the host power. Let me try again. Yeah, and she was on not long ago. So let me see if I don't have the right to make a co-host. And I think. Hello. Oh, okay, great. Ati. Mike, it's always good to have a direct number to the woman with with a lot of power than you. So yes, yeah. So I've used my connections to someone with a lot of power to share the power of you. I think she said she's done it, so you should have the right to do it now. Yes.
Does it come up?
Yes. So it's always good to have direct numbers to people with power.
People with power.
Yeah,
exactly. Thank you for that. Well, we can get going now. It's always one of those things, isn't it? You think you've got it all sorted, and then something crops up, and it's always
absolutely yes.
Always tough.
Oh no, the first person that logs on in the admin team gets the most rights. So I think that we learn every day as we go on. So yeah, good. Mike, I'll hand over to you to introduce yourself. Okay.
Yes. So so let me crack on with the presentation. Okay, so I go into a little bit about myself and obviously social housing and some of the strategies that I used, and I developed this strategy very much through the last recession, and obviously we're going to hit another recession, or we're in a recession due to COVID. So I think there's a lot of strategies here that are very relevant today, and I've been operating it for over a decade. So what you're going to learn today is how I increased my cash flow through the last recession. I'm also going to take you through the principles of universal credit and housing benefit, and also what I call my upside down lettings technique, because this is very different to me to renting to professionals, because you advertise a property and you attract tenants in. Here we use a different technique to find the tenants and work with the tenants and get tenants to move in. So it's very interesting. If you don't know this, as Sam says, things happen, the world has changed a bit, and people are going to lose their jobs, unfortunately, if they haven't already lost their job or reduced incomes, and therefore potentially as a landlord you're going to have arrears, you could lose profits, you could potentially have more voids, and you can also end up with the wrong tenants, because you might think, right, okay, let's go into the social housing strategy, but you might end up with the wrong social housing tenants. And I think social housing in a way has a lot of bad reputation, but that's because people focus on the wrong tenants and get the wrong results. I always say you have good social housing tenants and bad social housing tenants, like you have good professional tenants and bad professional tenants. So you understanding how to find and attract those correct tenants in. Create options for yourself so you're in control, or you will be controlled. And I think there's never been a time more like it, where if you've got these options, as Sam says, if you're an entrepreneur and have many options to you, you can pivot your business and you can make sure that you're still succeeding in some uncertain times. So I think having multiple streams of income, opportunities, If you're just solely in property, it's having different options that you can play with. If you're not just in property, obviously property is probably one of the things you do to give yourself options. So obviously COVID has impacted this year. And what has that meant? What are some of the big repercussions of COVID, amongst obviously having to stay indoors far more and lack of holidays this year? One of the main ones has been unemployment. There's been a massive spike in unemployment in 2020. Unemployment it came right down through between 2000 and sort of 13 to 16. It really shrunk and stayed low, but it's basically spiked right back up and hit massive new levels for the country. And there was 1.5 million claims to universal credit basically during the first lockdown in March to April. 1.5 million claims, new claims were made to universal credit, which is 6 times more than the same period last year in a single month since the introduction of universal credit. So that is massive. So basically claims have more than doubled. In April, it was 4.2 million claims. So it is, you can see, a massive sector, but also that means it's a massive opportunity for us as landlords if we understand the sector and if we implement it right. Obviously, the government has really helped lots of different people within this whole, terrible time of COVID. And one of the things that they did that probably people are unaware of is that they actually amended the benefit rates. So they're called the local housing allowance rates, and actually there's been double-digit increases in basically the rates across the board. I picked these areas just because I operate in some of these areas. I do quite a lot of work in these areas, so I picked these areas. But you can see here double-digit increases, some as high as 27%. 3-bedroom house rates going up by 15% in Guildford, 20% in Crawley. Some really attractive increases and some really good rates. And again, that has made the social housing opportunity even more exciting. It would have been exciting anyway, but it's become even more exciting because the rents and rates have increased in this sector, or what the government is prepared to pay. Because what they're trying to do is allow more properties to come into affordability for anybody on benefits, because there's going to be more people on benefits, and they probably didn't plan their lives around being on benefits. They're probably in properties already that had higher rents, so they want people to be able to afford these rents and pay it. Because of this, there shouldn't have been really a provision for rent holidays, because everybody who can't afford their rent should be entitled to housing benefits. So there's no real reason for people to be taking rent holidays. So if any of your tenants are taking rent holidays, you should be telling them to apply for benefits and getting at least all of their rent, if not most of their rent, paid by universal credit. So that I think there is really no excuse for tenants not to be paying you as a landlord. So if you've got problems there, make sure you send them down to the claims office. Well, where did my career start out? I started out in multinationals, working in marketing and strategy, and I worked on brands such as Guinness and Unilever, and I had a good time. But there was always change, and I didn't feel I fitted the corporate world, and always wanted to be an entrepreneur, run my own business, and I also was very interested in property. So I started investing in property while I was there to make my escape from the corporate ladder into the property ladder. So why was I motivated to do that? Because I wanted to earn money, but really it was about being able to take the lifestyle choices that I wanted to make and be in control of my life and not be a corporate slave. I didn't like the fact that you had to sort of find out who was going to promote you, be like good to them. As if there's a reorganization, it's down to other people. It's not necessarily how well you're doing your job. And anyway, you could be working on a project that then is canned, and those persons who projects who isn't canned and it goes well often gets promoted, and the people who don't get promoted is about self-promotion. I didn't feel I always fitted anyway. It's a world of lots of emails and those kind of things, and I didn't like that. Emails aren't my thing, partly because I'm dyslexic. So what did that do? That really drove me because I always felt that I had to drive a lot harder, push a lot harder, to prove that I could achieve things in life. So it's given me the drive to work hard, but it's also given me the ability to see things that I think others, and hence why things like this social housing strategy, I kind of work it out. I see things that maybe other people aren't seeing and pile it all together and make a comprehensive strategy and implementation of it, which I was quite good to see. So therefore I feel blessed because I can focus, be creative and focus on solutions and things that can be practically implemented. And that's the ability that I think it's given me. So entrepreneurship, sorry, has always been my passion. And that entrepreneurship came through property for me. I've really enjoyed the journey since. It's been up and down as we've been through the last recession. I've been doing it for 15 years and I've now got 3 property businesses that I run. One is Brankin Investments and Developments, which is high yielding basically investing in property for high yields, which includes high-end HMOs, social housing, leasehold conversions, refurbishment projects, and making a mark in co-living. The other thing is I have a letting agency called Viva Living on the South Coast, where a lot of my investments are, where we help other people with shared accommodation and look after other landlords' properties and portfolios. And I also have a property training and consulting business where I help others escape the corporate world and achieve a 6-figure income. I talk about commercial finance, talk about HMOs, and I talk about social housing as some of the key lead things that I do. But I'm great at helping people find their strategy, get clarity within their business, and really accelerate their property journey and turning it into a business to allow them to escape the corporate world and hold a group to help people do that. So very much I'm all about living life by design, designing your own life and living life that way. So when I escaped the corporate world, I then went quite big into property and bought over 20 properties in 1 year, where I was recycling my cash very quickly, allowing me to buy more and more and more property. That therefore drove me to focusing on buying with discounts. I did a lot of direct to vendor stuff. I sourced a lot of deals and recycled my cash quickly. That was all fine and well and good, except the credit crunch hit me and that kind of source of finance dried up. And also I was thinking about selling some properties to earn some money because I hadn't really focused on the property income. And obviously that also halted. So therefore I was stuck and I thought, what do I do? You know, when you're looking to increase your income, a lot of people say, yeah, why don't you, go and get a whole lot of HMOs or turn some properties into HMOs? That needs lots of money. HMOs is a brilliant strategy. I've been doing it for 15 years. And over the last 5 years, I've done a lot on high-end HMO co-living environments. But, at the time of the credit crunch, it wasn't the right time to be doing that, partly because tenants were drying up in that sector, but also there wasn't the money to invest or the availability of money to invest. And I wanted a quick return on investment or a quick return on time rather than investment. And therefore I started to discover social housing. My tenants were being made redundant. I started helping them with their claims. And then I started to realize I was learning more than them. And then I went away and researched it and became a specialist in it. I think we're repeating ourselves now in terms of COVID, where tenants are again losing their jobs. And you might end up with a benefit tenant, but it's also, there is going to be a massive need for people claiming benefits and a lot of landlords turn them away. So it is an opportunity for those in the know to actually start working with them and finding suitable accommodation for them, where there's a win-win between you as a property owner and them as a tenant. So what I'm going to do is take you through some of the basics of housing benefit or universal credit or the housing element of universal credit. First of all, I want to talk about social housing as a group. It's about £20 billion market. It's a massive, massive market. So if you're not operating in this sector, you're missing a big, big chunk of money. The government spend over 20 billion a year on it. That is an enormous amount of money. It pales into insignificance on what they've been doing, injecting into the economy during COVID. But normally this is one of the biggest things that they spend money on. There is 3 sections to me. There's local authority, housing owned by local authorities, council housing, housing associations as well, essentially is kind of council housing. And then there's accommodation provided by us private landlords to people who are claiming benefit. And they're each about a third of the market. So we are about a third of this overall market. So around about a £7 billion market for us as private landlords. So what happens? Basically what happened is they introduced this system when they moved from what was called housing benefit. That's why you'll hear me talk about different terms, because people know it as different things. But basically housing benefit turned into local housing allowance, and then local housing allowance got absorbed into universal credit. Universal credit is basically a one benefit system payment. So in universal credit, there is the housing element, there is the living allowance, there's any disability allowance, there's any family allowance that you might get for children, all combined into one payment that you get monthly. Whereas the old system, the job seekers allowance, was very different to the housing allowance, and they weren't connected at all. One was administered by local councils and the other one was administered more centrally through the job centres. Now everything is administered through the job centres. But what they've done is they've taken in a lot of the principles of local housing allowance into universal credit. So when they're calculating what the housing payment is, it comes from the local housing allowance. So we take a lot of those principles through into universal credit. So what they did when they introduced local housing allowance is they separated out the country into what they call broad market rental areas. There's about 150 of them. Now, of each broad market rental area, they collect a lot of the private rents. And then from there, they set the rates, the average rates for rents in that area. So if I take Portsmouth, which is one of mine, there's up here, there's a place called Petersfield, which is quite affluent. So therefore that has quite high rents, which helps force up the rents in the broad market rental area. However, if you're on benefits, they're going to be lower because these are the highest private rents than the local housing allowance rate. So people on benefits are going to struggle to find places to live there. However, you've got a place called Gosport in this broad market rental area, which is ex-Navy. There's a lot of Navy work and that's all shrunk. It's not the most affluent area. So rents brought down by a lot of the private rents in that sector. But what it does mean is the local housing allowance is higher than private rents in some of those areas in Gosport, which means you can push that up, which means you can get better yields in places like that. So a quick win, if you're thinking of investing in places and you want to do social housing, is go to areas where market rent is fairly cheap. You're going to probably find benefit tenants, but set your rates at the local housing allowance rent rather than the market rents by attracting in housing benefit tenants. And that is the first principle that you need to understand, is basically the housing benefits paid of the lowest of the local housing allowance or the actual rent. So if you have a benefit tenant and you set the rent low, but their rate is higher, you're missing out on that extra money that you could be charging because if they have a full claim, that's what they're entitled to. So you might as well charge it. So remember to set your rent at least at the local housing allowance rate, and that should be your base level. So whenever I assess a deal and say, what is my base level? What is the lowest rent I'll ever achieve? I know it's going to be the local housing allowance rate because that is my backstop. So I should never be charging less than that. And that's great for odd little properties in certain areas. It could be a certain street. It could be a certain, flat in a block, for example. It could be anything, or it could be a particular area. So just, you can check your rents, look up your rents, what your broad market rental area rents, and make sure you're at least charging that. And if your private rent is lower, I'd even put your private rent up to the LHA rate. If they leave, you know that you can always get a housing benefit tenant in and paying you a bit more money. So an example of that is I did a freehold to leasehold deal where I bought a block of 4 flats, and 3 of them were quite large and 1 was quite small. So the large ones always used to let to couples. I'd get the market rate. In those days, that was around 725, but this was smaller. So I'd often get 625, 650, maybe if I was lucky. And because it was cheaper, smaller, often singles would only take it. It wasn't quite big enough for couples. So that's why it often needed to be cheaper, and it was attracted for that. So first of all, I used to let it to professional at 625. However, under the local housing allowance rates at the time in the area, they were 725. And therefore, if I put a housing benefit tenant in now, I could charge 725. So this is an example of where I was underselling my rent, understand that once I understood the LHA rate. So I switched to LHA tenants in there and increased my rent by £100, really driving up the value and really driving up the rate I was paying. And the great thing about this is what social housing does is it really multiplies your profitability, because obviously all the costs on that flat have stayed the same. So that extra £100, so say if I was making £200 a month out of that property, if I get an extra £100 a month, that goes straight to my profit line. So instead of making £200, I'm making £300, which is an increase of 50% of my profit. So you can see how profit just multiplies under this system, because yes, you get higher HMO rents, but you also have extra costs to consider, like council tax, gas and electric, and cleaning and gardening, and all these types of things, which you don't get with most situations on that in the social sector. The other thing that you've always got to remember is, if you're a family, what can you claim? Well, back in the day under housing benefit, it was all about the house. So what was the house worth? And they would give anybody who lived in that property roughly that benefit. Whereas these days, it's nothing to do with the house. It's all to do with the claiming unit. So if a family qualifies for a 3-bedroom rate, they will get the 3-bedroom rate if they live in a 3-bedroom property. They'll also get the 3-bedroom rate if they live in a 4-bedroom property. They'll also get the 3-bedroom rate if they live in a 2-bedroom property. So it doesn't matter. But what that allows you to do is potentially take a family that qualifies for a bigger rate and put them in a slightly smaller property. And that is because they often struggle to get properties. So they're often quite pleased to go into those properties, especially if it's, for example, in an area of a good catchment for a school or something like that. And they're thinking about their kids. Maybe they have family who live on that street and they just want to live on that street. So there are many other reasons why people take properties. Or maybe you're helping them move in and not maybe charging quite as much as a deposit or something like that. So there's many things that you can do to attract them in, and you get a higher rent. And after all, it's the rent that actually makes you money, not necessarily deposits and things like that. So the principles of LHA is it's the individual that counts, not the property, and you can have more than one claim in any property. Rates are based on the bedrooms required, not on the property itself, but by the claiming unit. A housing benefit is paid at the lowest of the local housing allowance rate or the actual rent. And it is a means tested benefit. It is a means tested benefit. So, if you're not working, you are going to get the maximum. If you're doing a bit of work, that might come down a little bit, and they might have to contribute an element, but the rates are all based still on the local housing allowance rate. I'm now going to take you through some of my more advanced strategies. These then developed on because I understood more. I started to get into the detail. I started to look through the detail of all of this to see if there was more digging around within and fully understand the system. When I did that, I discovered that there was some quirks in the system that if you applied correctly would probably mean that you can get more rent for properties. And this is an example. So this is one that I bought below market value, recycled, did up, and let to a professional tenant. At the time, I used to have a couple in there, 725. When that couple let, I discovered this new thing called a 2+2. It wasn't, it wasn't written down as a 2+2, but it's become known within the industry as a 2+2. But there was a little thing within the housing allowance that basically allowed people to qualify for the 1-bedroom flat rate as opposed to the sharers rate if you give them 2 rooms in a house. So this is a 3-bedroom, 2-reception room property. And what I did is I put 2 people in there. So the same number of people, each of them had 2 rooms, their own 2 rooms. So they'd have a bedroom for themselves, they'd have a lounge for themselves. And then they shared the kitchen and bathroom. That then entitles them to claim a 1-bedroom flat rate if you're over 35. So if you qualify for the 1-bedroom flat rate, basically you could live in a flat or you could live here. Now, they struggle to move into flats because their flats are often higher than private flats are often higher than actually the 1-bedroom rate. You also need a full deposit. You also need lots of things that mean that they find it hard to move in. And, quite often landlords prefer professional tenants to social housing tenants. Therefore, they struggle to move in. Their only other option, maybe to go and live in an HMO. When you're 40 or 50, you don't really want to live in an HMO. You want to live in a nice house. This is a nice house, which they're sharing with one other person, but they have their own exclusive space, but their ability to share guess what? In these COVID times, it's been quite nice probably for people because they've had their own exclusive space so they can stay separate, but then they've got a bit of company when they were isolating and those kind of things. So what does that mean? Is that I would charge twice the 1-bedroom rate. In those days, that was 500 quid. So I'd get 1,000. Again, no extra costs, no nothing, same mortgage costs, same, everything else. Tenants pay the bills. So I'm not having to put an extra cost, but my rent has moved from 725 to 1,000. With these new rates, that's gone up even more now, and I'm making even more money. I've still got in there today social housing tenants. They've been there probably 5 years in this house. I've had various people in there, but the last tenants have stayed for 5 years, the same two people. So they often settle down, get on well, and stay there because it's quality accommodation for them and they can make it their own. So I call that the 2+2 strategy, and it gives a nice uplift for them. We can go on and do many properties like that. This one here, 695, again applying the 2+2 strategy, but kind of turning this one into a little bit of an HMO. I could change the rent from 695 to 1315. Then I also discovered there was a great strategy for flats, and I call this the 2-into-1 strategy. The 2-into-1 strategy allows me to claim the 2-bedroom rate within that property, which meant I moved, therefore, that small flat from the 625 now up to 895 as some benefit tenants with the 2-into-1 strategy, mothers and babies going into flats and getting 2-bed rates, which meant I can get 2-bed rates on 1-bed strategies, 1-bed flats, which really boosts the yield, and you can get some really good yields. And some of the areas are now operating and I'm getting double-digit yields on flats, which is probably unheard of. Double-digit yields in the south of England generally only gross yields comes from HMOs. So this is another way. Again, if you find families and you have families with a particular makeup, you can construct and structure claims so that they can move in the house and you get more rent. And this is an example of what I did here. Here, I used to let this out again to a couple at 625. It's a 2-bed house, 2 reception room house. This is a house I bought when I was working, so I let it through an agency. So I would receive in my pocket every month in my bank account 552. I had costs of around 200, mortgages and maintenance, so therefore my total cost 322, and my profit would have been about 230. Bearing in mind when I bought this, interest rates were higher, so I was making about 50 quid a month. No one said, you really need to be focusing on the income. It was always that your property would go up forever in capital growth. Well, of course, that wasn't happening through the last recession, and I doubt it's going to happen next year either. So you need to focus on income. And so ever since the last recession, I've really been focusing and honing in on income. And if I can support myself through the income and make money and profit through the income and more money than I need, I don't need to worry about the capital growth, and that will come over time. And you just let time do its trick. Because I put a family in there, I had a couple of claims in there, and therefore these 2 claims added up to 1,090. So therefore, and I started managing it myself. So therefore, instead of having 552 in my bank account every month, I'd get 1,090, which is almost doubling my net rent, and all my costs are the same. So you can see the effect on profit there, going from 230 to 730, almost quadrupling my profits. And actually my profit was then more than the actual market rent of that property, which is therefore incredible. It's a property that wasn't suitable for HMOing really, because it's only a 2-bed place. It's not that big. It's not in terms of, having separate rooms let out, but it was just a particular makeup of these people who wanted to live together. And that worked very well. And I call that the family strategy. There's the large family strategy. There's a small family strategy. This was the small families. This was a family strategy where you put multiple claims in. There's also what I call the rate strategy. Remember when I said, you could get a group who qualify for a bigger rate and put them into a property that might be often be slightly smaller. Now this property, again, these tenants stayed for around 8 years from the first tenants I put in there under this strategy, which has been fantastic. So that's the other thing. When you have low turnover, profitability really moves up. I call it rentability. I call it leakage. You get a lot less leakage sometimes through working with these types of tenants. The 3-bedroom rate in this area was 1148, and I probably would have let this to students at 1350 at the time. But basically I was working with some charities in the area. They had a family that qualified for the 4-bedroom rate, was looking for a house in a particular area because they had the kids but wanted to go to a particular school. And this was a bigger house than they were living in currently. So they took it and stayed for a very long time. And I was getting 1,600. That's not now gone up to 1,800 because the rates have just been pushed up. Obviously, market rates have moved up over time as well, but I'm getting a few £100 more per month out of it, plus the tenants have stayed for a very long time. So I haven't had to do much. You know, there's always a bit of work and costs as we turn over and maybe a bit of a void. So having long-term tenants is one of the sure rates ways to get profitability into your portfolio. I call that the rate strategy. So this one here is basically I've converted this property. I have done some work. All the other properties I've talked about, I don't do any work. I don't do lots of renovations. I don't have to change the property. I can just put people in. This is one of the few strategies where I have to modify the property slightly. And basically I convert them into really small, tiny studios. It's probably an HMO with a shared kitchen, but I put some facilities in the room. They have en suites, and then they're self-contained. They're deemed self-contained in the benefit eyes, and it's making sure that you walk the fine line of benefits versus planning. And if you get that line right, they again qualify for 1-bedroom rates. I have 4 people in there, so I get 4 times a 1-bedroom rate, which is 2,860, as opposed to, again, the market rent was roughly 1,300, student rent around 1,500 at the time, and then I got 2,860. Again, a couple of tenants have been in there 5, 6, 7 years. So some of them stay for a very long time. And again, low turnover, but the profitability on that place is fantastic. One of my best profitable properties, and it's not a massive property as well. So that's a micro studio strategy, but I did have to set it up. Once you understand these strategies, you can also take on other people's properties and implement your strategies and get the difference between what they should be making and what you can make. Instead of just doing it a management fee. So I started guaranteeing rents. And obviously later on in the world, everyone started calling it rent to rent. So I guaranteed the market rent on this one at 725. The landlord needed it because his costs were around 700. He couldn't go any lower. But I knew I could get 1,500 for that. I would have some costs associated to that. And then I get 675. So it works even on a rent to rent basis. Again, and you're making money out of other people's properties, so you can utilize it in the rent-to-rent strategy too. Now, also what's happened is I've kind of developed and worked also now into a hands-free strategy of working with charities, and this property I now hand over to a charity and they give me 1,500 a month. But when I used to let this as a mini HMO, as a small HMO, a 4-bed HMO, I'd probably get 1,900, maybe 2,000 in rent. But then by the time you've taken costs, my net rent would be about 1,300, but they're now giving me 1,500, but I don't have to do any of the work. You know, even if I was getting 1,500 net, by the fact that they're guaranteeing me rent and I'm not going to have any voids, I'm not going to be doing the work, it's probably worth it alone. Even maybe if I'm making a little bit less, because it becomes a hands-free strategy. They provide supported housing to the people in there, and I provide them with the properties. We then form a relationship, and then we can do several properties like that, and I can set and forget and not have to manage these too much. So again, that's the guaranteed rent strategy, which is probably one of the most hands-free property strategies out there that people are aware, that I'm aware of. And a lot of people say, oh, get into property is passive income. I don't think it's that passive because I'm actively managing a lot of my portfolio. But this, to me, is truly quite a high returns passive strategy, because once you've set it up and found the charity and worked through the agreement, they then pay you on a long-term basis and pay you regularly, and they're doing it. I've worked with many people who've done similar things. So this guy took on a property and rent and guaranteed the rent of £1,000, and he agreed to pay £1,000 for 3 years, and he was netting £620 a month because he was doing a mixed strategy in there, but making sort of 1,500, 1,600 or 1,620 a month when he was guaranteeing only 1,000, which is great. This is another one. Ex-local council houses often work very well for this strategy. And this strategy, you just need to understand your broad market rental area. That means you can always invest locally utilizing this strategy. The 2+2 works differently. It works pretty much across the country. There are some areas where it might be better to let out by room because the room rates and flat rates aren't that different. But essentially, it always works somewhere. But one of the strategies will always work in your area. And you can always work, therefore, in your broad market rental area and not have to go hunting around the country for yields and those kind of things. But this student basically took a property that would normally get 775, turned it into 1140 and achieved a profit per month of 650, far higher than a normal standard single let, but far lower probably than it is lower than often HMOs, but the cost is probably less, and therefore return on investment is probably still very, very strong. You know, they did this because they understood floor plans and those kind of things and how to create some extra rooms to create a 2+2 strategy in the property, or even more than that. The other thing, this is another one where they took some JV investor partners. So they then went on and bought several properties, and these are just two of them. And eventually one of them escaped. It was a couple who were doing this. One of them then left their job, and I'm sure the other one has now left their job because the rent that they achieved was 1710. And they would have only made 148 because they had to pay the investor. But now that they could achieve so much more rent, they're making 788. Again, you know, quadrupling your profits rather than, which is fantastic. So they never imagined they could actually invest on their doorstep, have the lifestyle that they wanted by investing in the stock locally. The next thing is the upside down lettings technique. You need to find tenants. And what I do is I attract tenants into me. I work with various organizations. I advertise in certain places and get the tenants coming to me. I don't put my houses on Rightmove when I'm doing social housing. That's not where they're looking. It's not how they are thinking. It's not how they're advertising. Obviously, if you put on Rightmove 2 rooms in a house, everyone go, what the hell? What's going on? I don't understand. So you need to know how to attract them in. And we attract tenants. We say that we're happy to take social housing tenants, and then we attract them in. We work with councils, we work with charities, and we do our own advertising in various places. We get people calling, and then we sift our tenants through, understand their circumstances, and fit them to properties. So we say, well, potentially we've got this kind of property for you because we understand your circumstances, understand your needs, and create a win-win scenario for them and us. Which is doing it back to front. If you go into property and landlording to feel good about yourself, I think you're in the wrong job, because it's very often the landlord is the nasty person and the tenant is fed up. However, if you get this right, occasionally you might get a letter of thanks. And this is a guy that we took who was sleeping rough, put him into a 2+2. Then he moved in with his daughter through us. He reconnected with his daughter because he then had somewhere stable. He then started living with his daughter in another one of our properties, and he was moving on. And he'd been with us for 3 or 4 years while that all happened. And they hadn't seen each other for years before he moved in with us. He got back on his feet. He reconnected with his daughter, and he says he can't thank you enough for what we did to him to get him back on his feet, which was made it all worthwhile, which was fantastic. Don't expect this, because if you expect a lot of gratitude, you're in the wrong job. But occasionally from time to time, you get a nice word done. Getting all of this right, though, is quite hard in terms of there's lots of paperwork to understand. There's lots of things to structure in the right way. Once you know and understand it, it's quite simple. But if you don't know and understand it, it's quite complex to go through for the first time. You might get things wrong. And instead of getting these higher enhanced rates, you might get lower rates. So you need to do this correctly. You need to know it. Otherwise, you could trip yourself up and be earning a lot less money than you would have been with the private sector. So get it all right. And we have certain target tenant types. We have certain target things that we look for and know, because over time we've tried and tested this. We've got things wrong. We've improved our system, and we've been doing this over a decade now, so that we have really good data, really good knowledge of what works and what doesn't. And that's why you see now why we've got tenants that are staying with us for some very long time. Because they're really happy with the accommodation that we provided them. I do run courses on this where I go into all of this in detail, and it teaches you how to get all these uplifts of rents. It goes into the detail, how to find and get your tenants queuing at your properties, and how you can fill out the universal claim forms for these maximum rents. If you don't get some of that right, you might have to end up paying the council tax, and the council and local people will often say, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that. You need to know what you can and can't do so that you can say, yes, you can. That's not a problem. Also, we try and get direct payments. There's certain tenant types we want direct payments for, and certain tenant types we're less bothered. One of the things with the moves to universal credit, it's harder to get direct payments, but there are certain tenants that will attract direct payments, and you'll get that. And also, you need to be able to push back against councils and universal credit if they try and claw back any of the rent that was paid to you. So on the course, we go into detail in the 2+2 strategy, the 2-into-1 strategy, the micro studio strategy, the family strategies, guaranteed rent strategy, and the upside down lettings tenant find strategy. All of this can make you a lot of money. Even one property alone for some of my students have made them 500 quid a month extra, which is £6,000 a year. So knowing this stuff can really improve your property portfolio. And I had another landlord who made an extra £6,000 a month because he implemented it across his portfolio. That's 72,000 extra a year. So you can go from 72,000 extra a year, or on a smaller level, it might be down to 6,000 extra a year, or it could be a couple of hundred quid on a property, but that's still worth knowing about, and it's still worth attracting to you. You know, in individual property deals, that someone moved their rent from 825 to 1242. So it's not just me that can do it, it's other people that can do it as well. Paul was using the rent to rent strategy. I used to call it lease to let strategy. And he guaranteed rents in London, but the London rates worked really well for him. And therefore he was getting £1,000 a month out of his LHA properties, and he bought 10 on within his first year, making him a 6-figure income within 1 year. So the course, that is being given just those 4 people alone a value of 95,000, and we've covered everything off. So it was a 2-day course at 997, but we're now doing this and delivering this online. But as that course, it was verified by an independent guy called David Humphreys, well known for auctions and knowledge around auctions, but he started to independently verify people's education, and he says it completely fulfills the obligation, and it's essential training before you do your first LHA letting property to maximize rents. So very much you know, something that comes across as quality education, an excellent workshop. So what am I going to do for you today? If you're interested in working with me, we've reduced the price down, and I'm going to give you a special offer today. Basically, we'll be running the modules in December, so you'll get it all done by Christmas, and you can crack on next year on this, and you get access to the live recordings. So I will hold this live just like this. This is live, so you can answer questions as we go through Q&A, and get all your questions answered. And then you have access to the recording, so you can go back through the knowledge. You also have access to all the standard documents that I use within my business. So what we're doing today is giving it a quick discount down from 497 plus VAT to 399 plus VAT. If you sign up in the next 24 hours. And this is the link. I would need to probably put that into some chat box or something. I don't know whether there's a chat box or I can do that. Maybe if I can stick it. Don't know whether I can ask a question, stick it somewhere. Let's see if I can stick it somewhere. I don't know whether I can stick it into a chat box because I'm not sure if I have access. So I would need to try and stick that. I'll have to. Anyway, so if anybody wants to sign up and they wanted the link, it's going to be a long link, I'm afraid, but you just have to, we'll put the link up at the end again, and you copy it down. Or you can email my PA at Mike Frisby, and say that you're on Sam's webinar last night, or Artie again. If you contact Artie, she'll probably send out the link post the presentation as well. But what I'm doing tonight as well, especially for as you come on with Sam, is the first 7 people to sign up get a 30-minute one-to-one call with me, and a strategy call or whatever call you want to do. It's your time. So the first 7 people to sign up get that. So that's a bonus. And as I said, I do freehold to leasehold strategy. So again, I'm going to throw in a recording of the title splitting course that I run, and I'm going to throw in the recording around commercial finance, because I often run events around commercial finance, because I've financed a lot of my HMOs through commercial finance and recycle a lot of my cash. And also a lot of people ask me, well, can I do this with rent to rent? And I say, yes. I also train on rent to rent, because I've been doing it for over a decade as well. And I'll throw that module in too. And all of that for $399 plus VAT, I think is excellent value. But you need to sign up in the next 24 hours. So this is the link. So that's www.paypal.com instant commerce / checkout, and then it's capitals LBHNBRDA 2YY5E, and I will put that up again near the end, but I just wanted to show you a quick testimonial.
Hi, I'm Grace, and I had listened to Mike's webinar on LHA, advanced LHA strategies, and I was interested, but I felt like I needed a little bit more information. So coming to today's workshop was perfect, because I'm now very confident in wanting to pursue the 2+2, and I feel like it's completely doable. The information that Mike shares is complete and very easy to understand, and really getting a lot of value out of today's workshop. So thank you.
So as Warren Buffett says, invest in yourself is the most important investment you ever make. And it's funny, I was doing a call today actually with Simon Zucci, another speaker that I know Sam has on, obviously the founder of the Property Investor Network and Masterminding Principles. And he was saying the best money he ever spends is on himself as an investment. And I really think that and really believe that. And almost the more I go through my career, the more and more I believe that, because it's the more it improves me and the more value I can add and the more value I can add my business to. So in summary, know and understand your rates, know how to do the paperwork and get direct payments, learn these creative techniques to maximize your rents, and work with charities to find tenants. And we work with charities in many, many ways, and help people out. We are often helping people who would have been homeless anyway, or have been homeless at one point and are now into our properties. And we work with charities who we then leverage quite a lot to do a lot of the work for us. So we explain how to do all of that and work with that, and really work in those areas. We go through how supported living providers get paid. We go through how to work with charities. We go through how to find tenants, and we go through all of those strategies. And you get all of this bundle, because I think there's going to be some massive opportunities in the social housing sector next year, and some massive buying opportunities too. And you combine the two together, it allows you to open up a real big opportunity. So it's www.paypal.com instant commerce /checkout capital LBHNBRDA 2YY5E. If you're having any problems or anything with the link, the very easy email to remember is pa@mikefrisby.co.uk, and it's MIKEFRISBY. So if you have any problems or further questions you want answering, Sarah, my PA, will be in the morning, will answer them all. Obviously say that you've been at Sam's event the night before, and she'll know where you've come from. So just do that. And then if you get it all right, we can have a nice holiday next year, finally again. So I'll just leave this slide up for a little while. And maybe, Sam, did you want me to answer some of these questions that are coming up in the chat box? Someone's saying the price comes up a bit more expensive. Yeah, because it's $399 plus VAT. So the VAT is included in that price. So it should be there. If you, so I work with, So there's some questions coming through. There's a lot of questions. There's a few questions around the course itself. So it's $399 plus VAT. So the VAT is added when you go through to the checkout. It should be on there. If there's any problems, as I said, email my PA and we'll reserve your space. But the first 7 get obviously the call. If you email now, we'll know again where you appear in those first 7. In terms of, which charities and stuff I work with, I often work with local charities. So not the massive charities, but I've found charities in my area, and I go through how to potentially you can find charities in your area that you can work with. And I've formed a relationship, and I work with charities in different ways. Some guarantee me the rent and some pass me the tenants, but they do a lot of the work in moving them in, filling out the forms, because I've trained them up to do it in my way. Now, someone was saying, do you need HMO licensing or selective licensing? Now, each area has different rules on HMO licensing, selective licensing, essentially. HMOs, 5 or more people as a standard HMO license, but somehow some places have selective licensing and you need to find out. But most of my properties aren't HMOs on the social housing sector. I do private HMOs, or I will lease my property, an HMO, to a charity. That would still be an HMO, and a license is probably required on that one. But the active strategies that I manage, generally none of them are HMOs. Occasionally they creep into being HMOs, maybe like the micro studios, but that's something I go through in detail on the course, when and where you don't need to do that. Renting to the YMCA, you could be deemed as social housing. It's just, it's a term often to use to encompass anybody who gets support from the government, in my view, which is termed as social housing. Some people are talking about, and especially in London, and you'll find in London, one of the great things in London is actually, if you get tenants from the council, which is a place that you could get your tenants, is some of them come with an incentive. So some of the people I work with get, £2,000 move-in incentives just for moving tenants in. So if you can then combine that with increased rent, it becomes a real no-brainer to move some of these people in, because you're getting incentives from the local council. There's also sometimes grants to do up properties, and you could by working in this sector, which councils need properties in these sectors, especially in the London area. So, I should imagine a lot of you are in the London area. They're crying out for properties, and they'll buy your hand off, and they give incentives, they give grants. Imagine getting an interest-free loan to do up a property in this, because you're going to operate in this sector. You can find a property deal, do it up on someone else's money, rent it out. They can find you a tenant, you can charge extra money, and then they give you a move-in bonus incentive. Sounds like fantastic to me. But you've got to get all of this right. So it's great. So there's a question around, I don't know the rates in Lewisham off the top of my head. 2-bed flats, actually, it all depends on the layout as to whether you can increase how much you can increase the rent there. I'd need to see that. One of the things that we do on the course is we say to people, send in your floor plans. If you've got a deal or a property that you want me to assess, I'll do that live within the course. There's there. You'll probably find there's a question around which areas are hot for social housing. I just find wherever I do it, it works, because there's always a need for it. And there might be areas that they have full supply, but I don't think so. I just always find that, and also with the growth in this sector that's going to happen through, unfortunately, the unemployment growth, you're going to have a far greater demand than supply. The councils, some councils are really, really desperate for properties. So that, do you need a specialist mortgage? For some of the strategies, you need a specialist mortgage. So that's something we talk about on the course. We talk about which finance companies for which strategies work quite well, particularly around you need specialist mortgages, particularly around when you lease your property to someone else. But some of the other strategies you can use normal mortgages for, and I go through which ones you can use normal mortgages for. Sometimes you need to use commercial finance. Sometimes that's an advantage using commercial finance. So yes, you can do that. Yeah, there's some good questions coming up here. Some councils do.
Mike,
Yeah.
Mike, sorry. While you're looking through this question, let me just interrupt you for 1 second, just to add to one of the things that you said. And by the way, thank you for the brilliant presentation. And just to support one of the things that you just said in there, can you all see my screen now? I've rudely changed my screen to mine, and that's what happened when you give Sam too much power. Now my screen.
I don't have enough power. Maybe I can take it back.
Yeah, this property here, for most of the people here live in London.
Yes.
This is on the North Circular. You probably recognize this ugly building just after the Tesco, next to IKEA.
Yeah, I know where that is.
It used to be a factory, and I've checked on the attendee list. I know the owner is not here, so I can say anything bad about it. This used to be a factory that's converted into a block of flats. It's, by all standards, I mean, I'm an auctioneer. It's one of the most ugly buildings that I've been in London, in North London. When I got called to value this property, and they told me that the rent is £21,000 per year, and I divide that's £1,800 a month, and I say, who would pay that to live in this flat? I didn't believe it. I went and viewed it. As you saw here, it didn't sell. It got withdrawn because no one believed it. I went to see the landlord. I said, how do you get such a high rent? He says 2 + 2 is 1. That's the first time I heard about 2 + 2. This is what's happening here. This is a very undesirable block, but the owner is actually using my strategy to get a very high rent. So the yields are fantastic, but we couldn't sell it because no one understands it. No one believes that they can get this rent because they don't understand the strategy. So if you look at it, for most people on this call, I'm sure everyone that's driven on the North Circular will recognize this building. You will not even know it's residential. It's a factory. It still looks like a factory, but it's been converted to flats. So this is just to show you how much you can get within London if you know how to use a 2 + 2 rule. So it's not just out of London. You can do it in London if you know how.
It works very well in London because the 1-bed flat rates are very good versus the sharers rate as well. So it works very well. And as I said, the guy who I work with, Paul, like making £1,000 a month out of places. But it works for these strange, what I call strange, ugly places. You know, something that you wouldn't typically think would make a lot of yield, and you can then just skyrocket the rent. And this is proof of it, isn't it?
And absolutely, to even make it even better, this £1,800, 21,000 is to the landlord, not the person operating it. It's a rent to rent. So the person operating is getting more to pay the landlady this much. So
yeah, so that's an exact example of the rent to rent strategy, utilizing the social housing, and the landlord's benefiting. And because if the landlord doesn't understand it, they're thinking, how am I going to let this place? Because it's not the most ideal of places. And yet someone with the knowledge comes along and understands how to attract the tenants, how to move them in, how to structure the claim and achieve that rent.
That's the reason I just couldn't sell this flat, because no one understood how they're getting such high rent.
It's funny.
Everyone thinks we are lying about the
I've taken some estate agents around some of my places before and just said, this is the rent I get. And they go, how do you get this? I don't understand. That's an amazing yield. I don't understand. Yeah. So you're not alone, Sam.
Yeah. For me, this was my first time I heard of the 1 + 2 + 2 rule, and we couldn't sell this property. Then after that, I got to understand how they're doing it. This guy does a rent to rent in London, but he uses social tenants to actually.
Yeah, and he's probably got a grant to move in. So he probably got, when he moved them in. So as a rent to rent strategy in London, it works exceptionally well because your cash flow is very positive very quickly if you structure it in the right way. And that is one thing that I find that a lot of rent to rent people talk about, but they don't understand. They do it they get their cash flow the wrong way around. So as they expand, they actually make less money, and you need more money to invest in the business. So if you get that right, and in London with these grants, it actually works very well. I've come across people who've, taken on, 50 properties in a year. So make got sign up bonuses of 100 grand in a year.
Because typically that property that I showed there would probably rent out for about 1,300, 14 maximum. So she is getting 1,800 on a rent to rent. So the operator must be getting maybe 2,000 something.
He'd be getting 2.5. He'd probably be getting 2.5. Yeah. So thinking about the rates around there, he's probably getting 2.5. Roughly around about that.
Because this is on the North Circular, and the issue of the social housing LHA rates in London, in Brent, is that north of North Circular is a lot lower than south. It's amazing. As soon as you cross A406, it's a whole different ball game in terms of how much money you can get. So understanding the nuances of the local authority,
that's understanding. Yeah, and that's the point that I was making around these broad market rental areas. If you understand your broad market rental area, you'll find there's high places and low places. And if you pick off, so what this person has done is he's picked off a property that is awkward to rent out, and that he knows that the person is going to be very desperate to probably get a guaranteed rent on, and they can get these high rates because there's some nice areas somewhere else in the borough. That means the rates are set nice and high, and he's come in and picked the right property, picked the right strategy, coupled it all together, and is making some phenomenal money out of it. So he's probably making 700 quid a month probably out of that shabby flat, and then the landlord's making the 700 quid. So everybody's having a good time. So if you owned it, if they actually owned it, they'd probably be making.
By the way, Mike, I haven't told you this, but I'm in discussion with our friend council. We do that landlord forum. We're looking at doing a virtual forum. So I've been saying to them that I wanted to bring you on to talk about how landlords can maximize the rentals to LHA. So maybe, just put that, I'll let you know the dates, and I hope you can make it.
Yeah.
No pressure there. Yeah. So I think you'll be great for that event to talk to landlords in London how they can maximize their extent. We've got a couple of people that put out their hands to actually speak, and a few people that have put into the chat that they want to sign up for the event. Ati says, I think she didn't get the link to actually email out to everyone to book. But if someone can send her the link right now, and she'll email it to everybody right now. If you can just email it or WhatsApp it to Artie right now. Do you want to take questions from the members of the audience that want to talk by themselves? I think Afu's got her hands up. Should I put that? Are you ready for that? Mike?
Yes, I'm quite happy. I'm just trying to see whether I can.
Okay, let me get Afua to talk. Afua, you can unmute yourself and then talk.
So I'm going to thank you. I had a question about lenders, because a lot of mortgage lenders, as part of the conditions, they say you're not allowed to lend to DSS people. You have to only rent to working tenants or retired people. How do you? I mean, are there specific mortgages for DSS tenants, or is there
the mortgage market is opening up in this sector. So they used to put it in terms and conditions. A lot of mortgage lenders used to put it in terms and conditions that you couldn't let benefit tenants. There still are some. So I go through. I mean, I don't off the top of my head. I couldn't list them all. Which ones do and which ones don't. But talk to a good mortgage broker and be clear. And I've heard people have their mortgage products pulled because they haven't got the right one, and they got wind that you're going to put social tenants in there. But there is more than enough out there. And also these days it's becoming politically incorrect to say no to benefit tenants.
Yeah.
There was this case up in the northeast that basically letting agents got sued and was done for discrimination. So it's quite discriminating, and I think eventually it will disappear because lenders will be told you're discriminating and you can't do that. So I think eventually all lenders will need to. Also, you can't dictate. If you have that in your terms and conditions, what happens now in this scenario where someone loses the job? So you have a mortgage condition that says private tenants only. Oh, well, you've lost your job, so my mortgage company needs me to evict you now. That's a bit of a political nightmare for the mortgage company, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The landlord to evict people in COVID because it's in their terms and conditions. So I just think it's going to whittle away, but there are some companies that are quite good in this sector. Fleet is one of my favorites in this sector. One thing that I've been doing as well is I have quite a close relationship with Shawbrook, and I've been pushing them on this sector. They've recently changed their conditions. They're happy. You might need a little bit of experience with Shawbrook, but they will do the guaranteed rent stuff as well to charities and that kind of stuff. So I've really pushed them because they're one of my favorite HMO lenders. So yeah.
I think apart from the mortgage, you do have some leasehold companies, some lease buildings that actually,
yeah. So if you're doing
on the lease, they say no social housing, but there's some blocks in Hendon where I own flats in, and I happen to be one of the members of the board of directors for the right to rent, right to manage company. So because we are more savvy, we've actually fought to take that, to make sure that that point is taken out of the lease for everyone, especially the insurance. We'll make sure that the insurance covers that, because most of us, that's a good thing if you have a right to manage lease directors that are very savvy on the board. They can actually make sure they look through the lease and take out statements that are a bit disadvantageous to investors, because I and a few investors said, we bought this flat to rent them out. You cannot restrict who will rent to. So we actually got the those conditions taken out. So if you own a leasehold flat, all you need to do is speak to all the investors on the block. You can get all those conditions taken out. And those conditions, if you threaten to sue them, to take them to court for discrimination, they would quickly take it off before the next day. Because after the test case that Mike mentioned, now no estate agent would say they won't take benefits tenants. You know, they will fail you for different reasons, but they cannot come out and say that clearly like they used to on paper.
Yeah.
We've got Mike. Afua, is that okay? Do you have any more questions?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, let me just get that. I think we've got Mike. Mike, you are allowed to talk. Just unmute yourself. Hello,
Mac.
I think ask Mike to, Mike, can you just unmute yourself and then you can talk? Mike, while we're waiting for them to unmute themselves, did you manage to send Artie the
I did send Artie the link.
Okay, yeah, so if she's got it now, she will be sending it to everybody.
I've seen the link in the Q&A. I've sent it to Artie, so hopefully she can send an email out.
That's right. And then what you could do as well, if you can just share your screen again so people can take a camera, they can probably take snapshots of it.
Yeah.
And then be able to do it. But she will definitely send an email to everyone that's on here.
Yeah, if you look in the questions, someone's posted it in the questions, which is very kind of them. If you wanted me to share that, if you take a photo of that.
Okay, yeah. Someone said they want to sign on. So there are quite a few people that say they're going to sign on to it. Okay, so let me. Any more questions in the
Yeah, if you sign up and you can't make that date and want to do a subsequent date, we will be holding some more next year. There's a question in the box. So yes, we will also be recording them. So we record them all. So if you miss it live, then you'll get access to the recordings. But then if you wanted to join another one live, I'd let you do that. So if you could only, we'd let you have access to the recordings. So if you sign up now, you can get access to these recordings. But if you can't attend any of them live and want to come on a subsequent one live, so you can ask questions and listen to it again, that is fine too.
Okay.
So,
Mike, there's a question here. Which areas in the UK are hot for social housing? Especially, did you answer that? Because
I kind of answered that. I think, most areas are hot. I think actually, where is there huge demand for this? In London is a huge demand because it's hard, traditionally the rates, etc., have not fitted for, social housing. So it's been difficult for families to find social housing, and most people want to rent to professionals and So there is a real pent-up demand in London. Any tenant on benefits, I think, struggle in London, and there isn't lots of social or council housing in London either. I think that a lot of those have been obviously sold off over time, which has reduced the stock. So I do think London is a hotbed of demand for social housing. But, you know, in 2021, believe me, there will be a lot of demand in most places for social housing.
Absolutely. I got distracted when you were presenting, because when you mentioned 2+2, I remember the first time I got it. So I was on London auction auction website looking through, because this was like a year and a half, 2 years ago, but
Right.
I couldn't remember when exactly it was. I thought it must have been like maybe 18 months ago. So I went all the way looking for that advert, because just me saying it might not have recorded as much as actually showing the entry on a flat on the North Circular that looks so unattractive, commanding rents of over £2,000. It's a powerful strategy. I will put you in touch with the operator so that I can actually you can get some good examples for our London presentations.
Yeah,
where
would be
2+2 works in London. So
Yeah.
I've seen them. One of the great things I like about my job, having to value properties for auction, is that I get in and out of all sorts of houses. You know, some of them don't want to go back in, but I have to go back in for the open houses. But yes, so
yes.
they do work. Yes. Okay, Mike, you want to go through the questions again? We've got one here. Some councils have a deposit bond scheme or pay first month.
Yes, what they're saying is that councils can have, you know, from your councils, you can, and again, this is something we go in, so someone's, so some councils, you know, different charities and different councils, you can, you know, the tenants will come, as I said, there's sign-on bonuses, there's deposit bonds, there's all sorts of stuff that different councils and different charities provide. So, and each one is unique really in what they offer. So there's Charles, there's a question by Charles saying that the county court is not binding as such. Yeah, it might not be binding, but I think it's coming through. If you operate on the South Coast too, Charles, just get in touch if you want to see if we can work together. You want to buy some properties on the South Coast and need help or whatever. So once you sign up, we will have you down and we will send you the links to the invites to the actual calls, if you see what I mean, the actual sessions. Okay. So if you missed when the dates were and everything, that will all come through once you signed up.
Okay, Mike, did you answer this one? There's one here from Anonymous. One or two people, Don has asked the same questions. Where can I get up-to-date LHA figures across London boroughs? There's a website where you can go to get all the rates. I used that website 2-3 years ago, almost hourly, because
there's a couple of websites. One of the easy things is just to Google LHA rates, and then it normally comes up with the government one that you then tap in your postcode, and it will give the rate for that property for the postcode, and it will give you all the different rates. And then there's another one that has a table of every single rate in the country, the sharers rate, the 1-bed rate, the 2-bed rate, 3-bed rate, 4-bed rate, and it'll have a table. So if you're wanting to look throughout the country, just maybe to observe rents, or maybe you've got several properties in different locations, there's another one that's quite a useful table as well. So that's quite useful. And they change every April. So they will be, so in March, they'll publish what they will be next April.
And just to add a bit to that, they always go up, they hardly go down, because that would be a disaster if they were to go down, because then the council might find themselves with people being evicted. So most of the rates, when they get reviewed, it's always an upwards review. Don't expect them to ever review it downwards. Mike, I don't know if you answered this one from Don saying, can you please summarize the 2+2 strategy again?
Yeah, so the 2+2, a lot of people, if they hear it for the first time, it can be a little bit confusing. So I repeat it several times
Actually, I'm one of those people. I got so confused the first time I heard it, 2+2 is 1. I said, what do you mean?
What does it mean?
I've got a first class degree in mathematics.
Yeah, so basically in simple terms, when I try and put it in simple terms, and because I'm so familiar with it now, but that's why in the course I layer it up to really explain everything in detail. But here tonight, let's explain it in the most simple way I can. Basically, I'm giving someone within the house 2 rooms within the house, so which they have exclusive use to. So maybe that is, for example, if you have a 3-bedroom house, you might be giving them 2 bedrooms in the house, and that person then has those 2 rooms in the house. Someone else will go in and that leaves 1 bedroom and maybe a lounge downstairs. So you give the other person maybe one of the rooms and the lounge downstairs. And therefore 4 rooms in the house are taken. So one person has 2 of them, one other person has 2 of them. And obviously they're sharing the kitchen and the bathroom because there's probably one of those. And because you're giving them those 2 rooms, the magic 2 rooms, and they're over 35, they qualify for the 1-bedroom rate. So the 1-bedroom rate is generally what flats rent for. So effectively you're getting whatever the rates are for flats in the area times 2 in that property. And that is generally higher than a 3-bedroom, standard rent. And that's what gives you the uplift. It's
that's exactly what is happening in that block of flat. It's a 3-bedroom. It happens, the layout of the flat is very nice. You come in, there's a long corridor and all the rooms come out of it. So it's very easy to give someone that own 2 rooms, and then the next person has a living 2 rooms. And then just like you articulated, in fact, one of the rooms might be en suite. So they actually have just a kitchen, which is quite a big kitchen as well.
Which is quite nice. And there's other little tricks you can do as well, which I go into. But the other thing is utilizing, it's maybe on some flats, maybe he's using some stud walls to create the number of rooms that you need to. So often people have to put up a stud wall from time to time to create that exclusive use of a room, or maybe a bedroom is massive and you can create, put a stud wall up in the middle of it if it works. Hence why I say to some people, bring your floor plans. We go through your floor plans and I can show you what I see. And it really opens people's eyes as to, oh my gosh, I can see that, And I think in London, as Sam says, there's a lot of 3-bed flats that would work very well with this strategy. Maybe even large 2 beds might work. Small 2 beds probably wouldn't. But there's all sorts that you can do. And also, small 1-bed flats work quite well as well. So there's all sorts that can be done around this.
Okay, so this one is from Margaret. So I'm very intrigued.
The good thing in London is the councils are very favourable to working with private landlords on the whole, and will then incentivise landlords as such to do so.
Yeah, we've got a few people here that are asking for the recording. Yes, it's being recorded, so we'll have the YouTube probably ready in the next day. So we'll send it out to everyone that's on this session to follow. Okay. Yep. So I think are we done with the questions, Mike?
I think so. They're saying I'll also be holding one in January, but if you sign up now, you can choose which date you go on. Is the 2+2 classed as an HMO? Generally, it's not classed as an HMO. So we've kind of done a lot of that. Tenants generally pay the bills, so I'm not paying any bills. How do I? I think we've got a lot. So we've covered most things off, I think, Sam.
Yep. Okay. I think all the questions are covered. Just okay. Good. Just So thank you once more, Mike. I don't know if you have any sort of closing remarks to make.
Just thanks very much to everyone listening tonight. There's been some great questions, so obviously people were listening, so thank you. I do think 2021 is going to be a fantastic year for property. I think there's going to be some good opportunities to buy, and if you couple that up with some social housing strategies, I think you can make some good purchases to rent. And there's all sorts. The great thing with this strategy is that encompasses so many properties. Whereas if you want to do HMOs or something like that, you need specific size properties and those kind of things. Whereas this, as Sam showed really well, you know, it can be an ugly flat just off the A40 or whatever it is, and you can do very well out of it. So it could change, you know, what you're looking at in terms of opportunities quite easily. And certainly if you already have properties, it could probably increase your rates pretty well. But this is I think this is going to be a growth sector for 2021. And I think it's something that this is something as a professional landlord you should have in your toolkit to know and understand.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Mike. So yourself, Bob, any closing remarks at all?
Yes, I found that really, really fascinating. And just as Mike was talking, I did look on the LHA website and found that two of my tenants were underpaying me. So I've just sent them a quick text, and I'm already £400 a month better off because I said,
there you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
okay.
I love the quick action as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'll definitely be subscribing for the course because as a broker, you know, I do invest in property myself as well, but I'm keen to make sure that you know, we always find the right funding solution for our clients. Yes, you mentioned Fleet and Shawbrook, but you know what their rates are like as well. So,
Yes.
you know, so you do pay for that privilege of getting that extra leverage, extra flexibility in the underwriting. So, but yeah, no, fantastic presentation. I really, really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot for myself, and I'm sure I'll be sharing that knowledge with my client base as well. But yeah, I'd be keen to learn more. I'm sure the $399 plus VAT package is absolutely a steal, given what you're going to be giving them. You know, all the commercial finance tips, all the rent-to-rent strategies. Absolutely, you know, very, very good value, I think. So I'd like to join as well. So if you get your PA to call me,
Yeah.
you know, I'd like to increase my knowledge on this sector and you know, make more money next year, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I can. Well, you've already made 400 quid extra. Imagine once you've been on the course.
Yeah.
And it's great to hear that Bob wants to go on the course, because when we recommend people to Bob, and I just say, I'm not just recommending Bob because he has a lot of time to come on our events, but I like a mortgage broker that's a property investor that understands the rules, that is getting a mortgage that for himself but for you. Because one of the problems I have with some mortgage brokers is that they don't invest in properties themselves. Same with like lawyers. You want a lawyer, conveyancer that understands what you're going through, not someone that just does it as a job, but that understands where you're coming from. So by you actually attending all these events and training, you understand exactly what people are investing and how best they can do. So you act not just as a mortgage broker, but almost as a consultant,
As a consultant.
investing as well.
Yeah,
which is excellent.
I'm an ex-banker, an ex-lender, ex-IFA, pensions advisor. So, you know, I've got a fairly coloured background and fairly, you know, knowledgeable on everything really. So when we look at a client's needs, we see everything. You know, we don't just see the mortgage, we see their past, we see their future, and we want to work with them and help them, you know, on that journey ahead. And Mike obviously touched on lending, which is very good. And as you rightly said, the lending sector is opening up to social housing. Before, it was a blanket no DSF.
It was hard, wasn't it?
It was hard. But now they will let to housing associations. They will let you have a 3-year AST agreement in place.
Yeah.
But, you know, multiple letting is still an issue. So the 2+2 strategy, you know, I'm not sure whether which lenders would do that. I guess Shawbrooks and Fleet might do that. But your vanilla lenders, the people that charge you 2%, aren't so flexible in that criteria range. They do prefer standard buy-to-let. So, as I say, you need to consult with somebody and give them what you're trying to achieve.
You definitely need to consult with a mortgage broker on this.
Yeah.
And if Bob goes through the course, I think it would be a good idea, because then he'll know exactly, you'll be talking the same language.
Yeah.
It's then very easy to converse.
Yeah.
Because again, trying to tell a mortgage broker what you're doing on a 2+2 could be quite difficult if they don't know and understand themselves. Because what are you doing? Why would you do that? That's silly. That you can't do that. Or the number of letting agents I've had saying you can't do that.
No,
that doesn't work. That's rubbish. It doesn't work. Or I've tried it and it doesn't work. It was like, yeah, because you haven't done it right. You You haven't known.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
I go on, Bob. Go on.
Yeah.
Bob.
I was going to say this strategy would be absolutely excellent for an estate agent who wants to increase their book,
Yes.
because they can offer guaranteed rents to their landlords, and in return, because they'll get first bite of the cherry, they're going to get the first look at it, so they can look at the floor plans of the flats and the houses and see how they can be restructured or remodeled, and actually achieve far greater rents like this A40 chap.
Yes.
That's amazing, isn't it?
It just amazes me that people don't do this. I think I've had one or two agents on my course where the penny dropped, because I've been to, they might attend an event like this, and then they've come. And I remember once the guy just went, do you know what? I've been in this game for 20 years.
I never thought of it.
And the penny's only just dropped.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'm going to make so much money out of this. This is the penny has just dropped.
Yeah.
And he was like, I just don't understand. I've got all these properties here and I can make so much more money out of them.
Yeah.
And you just go, why doesn't people, I don't understand why people don't.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think sometimes, we all live a fairly blinkered life. I'm mortgages, I live, breathe and eat mortgages. Sometimes you forget to look outside the box.
Absolutely.
I've got a lettings agency, a very small one, but, I would never dream of doing this because I have historically thought it as being time consuming, too troublesome, problematic tenants, DSS type, maybe the vulnerable sector, something that, obviously I think does take a lot of time, but, you can't do everything. But
it does take time. Yeah. So certain things, there's stuff you can ease, people that you can work with.
Yeah.
Lots of, over time I've worked with it. And it probably is more work than a professional single to be honest, on some of them. But then if they stay a long time and it settles down and they work,
absolutely.
Then you're getting this extra rent, which is great. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. A fantastic presentation, Mike. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
excellent. Thank you, Bob. So, Angelene, for any closing remarks? You're on mute, Angelene.
Sorry. Yes. No, it's amazing actually. It's a strategy that I've never really heard of really. So it's an eye opener for me. So I think I learned today. What I will say is these are all great strategies. Just remember that as landlords, you are a brand as well, and to kind of think about the tenants from their tenants' points of view and make sure that you are creating an environment that they can live in. It's great dividing rooms and things like that, but you've also got to think they've got to actually operate in that. So just keep that in the forefront as well as maximising profits. And I think that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. And some people come to me and I go, someone has to live here, and there's, someone has to want to live here. And if you make something that someone doesn't want to live, they won't live there and they won't stay there. And it is creating a win-win, because that's when it only works, when you create a win-win. Some people, I think, take it too far, or have taken it too far in the past. Very much, these days for me, I'm not trying to eke out all of these, extra rooms, putting up stud walls. That's not, but I like to show people possibilities so they can see what they can do, and certainly go forwards. But most of it is you're providing something that they couldn't have anyway, and giving them access to accommodation where they wouldn't. So yeah, for a lot of people, it's far better. And as I was saying, most, for example, single people who are in their, slightly older years, who I put into the 2+2s, their kind of only other option is living in a single room. So in a house share. And then they've probably got younger people living with them who are probably a bit more up and down and riotous and all of that. So they appreciate having somewhere nicer. Of course, everyone would probably want to live in a flat. I'm not denying that, but that's beyond their abilities quite often, because they can't afford that, because the rates don't allow it. So it's a great little medium in between the two, which seems to work quite well.
Okay, so Angelene, just coming back to you as an architect, where most of the time people come to you to redesign their extensions, they ask for HMO, 6-room, ensuite, or 5 rooms. Can you see this being something that you might suggest to some of your clients, saying, well, instead of HMO, why didn't you consider 2+2? You think this might work for some of your clients?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Yeah, because it becomes
Yeah, I
an
think it would
alternative
work,
to just
especially when
doing
you've got
everything as
difficult
HMO.
property.
I guess where
Yeah, I think particularly when you've got difficult properties that you know, have got quite a complicated planning history, and they have to stay residential. There's a really good use of that stock where you don't quite know what to do with it. You know, I think it's great. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, because there's some areas where, from a planning perspective, the house has a big enough footprint, which I've had that problem myself in Edgeware, where I tried to go for a three flats planning. They won't allow 3 flats because of amenities, but they'll allow 2 big flats. But for me, without knowing 2 plus 2, I'm thinking 2 big flats are not going to be enough rents for me. But now, knowing 2 plus 2, if I have 2 big flats, I'll make the rooms such that 2 people can, it will effectively become 4 one-bedroom flats instead of 2 two-bedroom flats. Does that make sense? Because I can get 2 plus 2 in 1, 2 plus 2 in 1. So effectively, I'll get the rents for 4.
You've got the same as 4 one-bed rates, 4 one-bed flats.
I think this could be a planning mastermind instead. I think.
And also Sam, the micro studios. When I was talking, the micro studios would work well, and that's where Angelene would come in well, understanding all of that and the implications of that. Which is you have to tread a very fine line with those kind of things. So talking about that is quite an interesting one as well. It's quite a good strategy as well, which you could do on those buildings that you're talking about, Sam. So many opportunities.
Absolutely. I think as we've been talking now, the opportunities are coming up, because the problem in London with converting some big houses to 3 flats, it's a no-no because of amenities. They will say now you can only do 2, but it's not financially viable to only have 2 flats.
Yeah, essentially this is the whole thing, is you're converting a house into 2 flats without doing the work, without going through the planning permission, but getting the rental yield as though you've done it. And that's essentially what you're doing.
I think you got a question from Anna. Anna, I've given you a right to speak. Anna, you can unmute yourself if you want to take part in the conversation. I think just 9:30 officially. Let's get Anna to talk before we. Anna, are you there? She had her hands up. Okay, so officially, what we tend to do here is at 9:30, right on the dot. Actually, you just use your 90 minutes. So we are at the official end of the Midas event today on social housing. So right now we just have a bit of networking events, which we normally do with Ranjit on board to open the bar, but Ranjit is not here. So actually, without Ranjit here, I think the closest I got to Ranjit's bar, Mike, when you share your profile about yourself, there's a time when you talk about Guinness. Yeah, the bottle is so big in front of me, you have to hold back from actually trying to grab the bottle. I don't know if I'm the only one that was almost pulled to actually pick that bottle of Guinness and fill it. But yeah, but without Ranjit here, we haven't got a bar, but we're going to do some networking. Yeah, and for the panel members, thank you for being here. If any of you really have to go, you can always go, but right now we just have a bit of networking, and I'm going to allow anyone that has anything to share to talk about the market. Okay, I think we've got a hand up as well. Pierre, let me authorize him to talk. Okay, Pierre, you can talk. Mr. Oko, you can just unmute yourself. I've got quite a few people that are putting their hand up to share that.
I will hang around. I'm just going to have to pop to do something, but I'll be back.
Yeah, let's see. Let me see if it's for you. I don't know if it's for you. Pierre, can you talk? Just unmute yourself, and they'll go Ashu Sharma. Let me allow them to talk as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your question to Mike?
The question is, it could be to anyone, but yeah, specifically to Mike. See, I'm actually based abroad. I live in Geneva, Switzerland, and my challenge would be to source deals. How do I go about sourcing the right social housing deals if I'm based abroad? I mean, I could fly in, the odd occasion, but even with COVID, it's a little bit more difficult.
It's difficult. Well, connect with us, Ashu. Connect with me, and I'm more than happy to see whether I could do some work for you. I'm sure Sam as well maybe would be able to point you in the right direction of things. But I would recommend sort of finding someone in the UK that you feel you could potentially work with, who can do some of that legwork for you and then show you deals that might work for you if you have a specification. So
yeah, okay.
probably the best way.
Does your company, as part of its training, do you have as part of Property Business Accelerator, do you have that as part of your scope, a sourcing platform?
Yeah, so we can we don't do a lot of it, but we do it. So we do it. So we do it, quite on a bespoke basis, if you see what I mean. So it's not a mass thing that we do, that we churn out all these things. We find the right things for the right people. Through our lettings agency and stuff. So we can find it, source it, find it and fill it for you.
Okay, great. Yeah, that would be very helpful for overseas investors.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Ashu. I think we have Mr. Oko. You can unmute yourself to talk. So Mike, if you want to excuse yourself, don't worry.
Yeah, I just need to.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good. So anyone else who's actually buying a property right now, who's on the market buying, we just want to get your experience. Who is going through planning actually? Good to know who's having any issue for any planning department in London. Is there anyone that's going, let me see, I'm not sure if your hand has been up from before, or just now. I'll ask you to unmute if it's is there anyone here that's going through a planning process? We just want to get some experience, what people are going through right now. Because I said, Mike just finished. We'll have maybe about 10 minutes just to do some networking. Bimbola, okay, let me allow you to talk. Bimbola, you have the right to have a quick chat. Yeah, if you can just unmute yourself, Bimbola, and you can turn on the video if you want to, so we can see you if you want to, but you don't have to.
Let's see.
Okay.
We're just going. Actually, we're just in the middle of a purchase now. Actually, F19 and another colleague. We're not 100% sure we're going to need planning. It's basically we're trying to bring the bathroom downstairs and put it in the current lean-to. So it might be a case where we would need planning, or maybe it falls under permitted development, but we definitely know we will need building regs approval.
Yeah, just building
so that's kind of where we are at the moment.
Okay, it's quite interesting that you said you're buying with, you mentioned two, three other names. So are you buying with friends, or is it a partner, or who?
Yeah, I call myself the self-certified joint venture advocate. Yes, I'm buying with a partner.
I mean, as a life partner or business partner?
Business partner.
Business partner. Okay. So how did you structure the deal? Is it like on a kind of Guinness, or is it like legal? What kind of structure do you have in place?
Well, typically we do have a proper legal agreement, a joint venture agreement. Although this particular one, I think we're just going to do it over a plate of jollof rice. But typically we do have a proper agreement.
Okay. Oh, of course, not Guinness. You might forget the terms afterwards. So,
Exactly.
do you have a limited company with shares, or just there might be just for the benefit of other people that are on the on this call that might want to understand how people can invest together? Because for what we do, I often come across people that say, I've only got 40,000, I've got 70,000, how can I invest in properties? So how did you structure the partnership?
Yes, so basically what we're doing is we set up a limited company, and then we're all shareholders, although just one of us is a director. And we did that purposely because it kind of makes the mortgage process less complicated. Obviously, if we're all directors, then we all have to be party to the application, which might make it even a longer process. So we just got one of us to be the director. But then what we then do is once we set the company up, we're purchasing by a bridge loan, do the refurbishment, and then we would look to remortgage. And then we also do have some sort of agreement to support the director who has to guarantee the bridge loan or subsequent mortgage. So it's just an agreement to show that, look, if everything were to go pear-shaped, we're all in this together. So we have that, and that one we take very seriously.
So, okay, I just hold it there. I'm going to bring in Bob again, our mortgage expert here. Bob, so if we have 3 people that are going for a property, I mean, the structure that they've said, and I quite like the fact she's already mentioned and thought about the mortgage. Is it best to have just one director first, or all 3, if they have credit ratings, or does it, let me just finish so you can answer in one go. Okay. Shareholders, if you have one director like they do, and then maybe 5 or 6 shareholders, would the credit rating agency want to see the credit ratings of the shareholders as well, or just the director?
Okay, every bank operates differently. So I think the key thing is for the people who are going into the venture to understand their own personal positions as well as their overall position. Because if there are four people buying together, I mean, you can have 4 people buying in personal names. That's the maximum the law allows for single applicants. However, in a company setup, you can have more shareholders. Now, where your shareholding is less than 19%, banks don't underwrite that particular shareholder. They see them as a minority interest. They're not really interested in them. They could be based overseas even. You know, they don't want to know about that 19% shareholder. But anybody above that, yes, they will underwrite. They will credit score. But as I said, you know, it's always wise to have an agreement, whether or not it's a limited company or a partnership, because life is such, things go wrong. Partnerships, you know, can get a bit fraught. So therefore, it's always wise to have, firstly, a written agreement of some sort. Secondly, what people overlook is having some sort of life cover behind to cover the loans. If during the process one partner dies, how do you buy that person's interest out? So for not a lot of money, you can actually get the company, limited company, to insure the directors so that if the worst were to happen, you know, you're covered. And that is a tax deductible expense. So easy to arrange and very, very cost efficient. But again, it depends on the gain that you're going to make in that particular project. Every person has a £12,500 CGT allowance. So if 4 people bought the property together, you can earn £50,000 tax-free, and only then do you pay tax above that. Whereas in a corporate structure, you'd pay 20%. Sorry, in a corporate structure, you'd pay 20% on the gain, full stop. There's no individual CGT allowances. So, you know, you do need to take some tax advice as well from an expert. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a tax advisor, but you know, these are the things that you need to look at. And if your profit's way, way above that, and your individual CGT allowances, you know, fall into, you know, triviality, it doesn't matter then. But I guess most projects are going to be profits of 50 to 100,000. So you need to be careful how you structure that from a tax angle as well as a mortgage angle. And yes, she was right. I mean, having one director to underwrite is, you know, is a lot simpler than having 4 people to underwrite. And if you do have credit problems, yeah, you know, choose the one who's got clean credit.
Okay, Bimbola, would you agree that that's chargeable information, isn't it? We'll send an invoice. I think that was too much information Bob is giving away for free.
I got the thought about life insurance for the director. Yeah, thanks for that. We'll look into that.
Yeah, it's called a relevant life policy. It's written under pension legislation. It's not a standard policy, so don't confuse it with the standard life policy.
Yeah,
it's the company that insures the director, not you insuring yourself, and that's why the premiums are tax deductible.
Okay.
Yep. So I think, Mike, you walked away. Bimbola just came up and said about 3 of them, they just bought a property together in a JV. So we're just talking about how they structure the JV. At Midas, we love this, just call members of the audience to say what they're doing, and everyone gets to learn quite a lot from it, because we get a lot of people that come over 50,000, 70, which is not a lot in London. It's quite good that people can learn how they can all work together. Okay, Bimbola, thank you for sharing what you're working on right now. Is there anyone else that is okay, Mark, you put your hand up again. I hope it works this time. Let me get Mark to come up, see what Mark says. Let me promote you to the panel. Mark, do you want to unmute yourself and just tell us, share with us what you're doing now? Are you going through any planning? Anyone that's doing anything interesting? Okay, I think Mark, again, we can't hear you. Okay, so anyone else in the audience that just wants to do some networking and just talk about, okay, oh yeah, Yogesh. Okay, let me get Yogesh from Yogesh into the panel. Yep, okay, Yogesh, if you just unmute yourself and just tell us, you can switch on your camera if you want to.
Hi,
Yes.
hi, thanks for inviting me.
Hello, hi Yogesh, good to see you.
Yeah, really good to talk today.
It's been a long time, you know.
Been a while, you know. You talked about planning issues. I'm trying to get permission in Bromley to convert a 2-bed to a 3-bed flat. But basically, the council said no, and the reason that it's big enough, etc., and fulfills all the criteria. But they said no because the reason they said no is because when the original block was converted to flats, they put a stipulation that conversion should be built as per the original plans. And so the reason they gave that I couldn't convert it from 2 to 3 is actually I applied for a certificate of lawful use, proposed use, was because of that original stipulation that it should be built as per the original plans, and then they can't be changed after that's been done. So it's quite a technical one, but you asked about planning. So I just wondered if anyone had been through that maybe, or have any advice for me. I thought if you do internal works, converting a 2-bed to 3-bed, that doesn't really involve planning. But it seems like some councils interpret that a bit differently.
Okay. Was that a condition from the planning, or is it a covenant?
No, it's not a covenant. It's a planning condition.
It's a planning condition from the first application. How old is the block?
The flats were converted probably 5 years ago.
Okay, 5 years. So it's quite recent. Okay, it's not like 1930s build that you could probably challenge on just on time. Okay, I think Angelene seems to have dropped off somewhere. Maybe she's taking a break. Oh, okay, Angelene,
I'm back.
you're on. Okay, yeah. Okay, do you have any say on that?
We'd have to look at the reasons for a refusal. It might not be a long enough established use. Yeah, it's something we'll have to definitely look at in detail.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, I say the floor is open for anyone that's going through any property investment, or maybe anyone applying for a mortgage right now that just want to chat, or thinking of applying for a mortgage, or just anything. Anyone that's going through any exciting thing that we should know, or any conveyancing. There's no lawyer. Well, there might be some lawyers in the audience, but you can slack lawyers. Just join the queue. Anyone that wants to slack that lawyer for not reacting quickly? Yeah. Okay, let me just see if anyone else. Yes, so that's got the hands up to say. Okay, so okay, so I think we just doing a bit of networking again. For anyone that Mike has sent the link to Archie, so Archie will be sending the link to everyone. We used to have chat enabled when we were doing all our presentations, especially at the beginning of lockdown. But the feedback that we got from members of our attendees, that was very distracting, because a lot of people were spamming everybody with messages all the time. So we had to switch it off, unfortunately, because people get distracted by people just spamming. You had maybe people that would put their services, or people that were chatting, just distracting. So we had to put us off. Okay, I think Ashu wants to have a quick chat again. Let me still got probably about 10 more minutes for 10 o'clock we can go. Okay, let me put Ashu onto the panel again for Ashu to talk. Yes, Ashu, you can switch on your.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is just a general question. I think either Mike or Bob can answer this. Just wondering, because I already have a company with 4 HMOs, and I was wondering, does it make sense now to restart another company just for social housing? Because there might be benefits that only pertain to companies that hold social housing projects in terms of grants and the like. Would that be a reasonable thing to do?
I don't think it's a compelling enough reason to open a separate company account. I think the grants would come to you whether you operated it in the same company as the other 4 HMOs. You know, I don't think you'll be disadvantaged or advantaged by having a separate company, and all you're doing is adding a separate tier of cost.
Yes.
I guess it depends what grants you're talking about, but a lot of the grants are like specific to what you're doing. So it might, you know, if you're doing up a particular property that you're hoping to get some grants for, that would be property specific. So it doesn't matter if you own it in your own name or a company name, and you might have various other properties in either. So it doesn't really matter. And as Bob says, you know, it doesn't seem to warrant an extra company. And that's just only going to bring more costs to you by running a separate company. So I wouldn't necessarily, I don't see the advantages. I don't think it will be, unless you're really heading into wanting to become a registered provider and all of the, you know, become more like a housing association, which I wouldn't have thought you would. I mean, I'm not or anything like that. So I just do it all in one company, or that some of these properties are still historically in my name. So, you know, again, if I'm having to now pay a little bit more tax, having these increased rents is quite useful.
Yeah. The only rationale I would say is if you're maybe looking to go into the social sector a lot more, and then planning to have 5 or 10 properties in that, with a view to selling them as one job lot in 10 years' time, then it might be better to put that in a company now, sell that as a company later, without disturbing your HMO sector.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
absolutely. I think, Bob, you just picked up. I was just coming to make that point that from a property trading point of view, in fact, I was speaking to someone today, Coventry. I think someone has got a look back. I think someone has maybe their Facebook and Zoom at the background. Yeah. So, yeah, I think I'm not sure who has a look back, but yes. I was chatting with this chap in Coventry. He's got a couple of companies. So he's got a portfolio of student-leds in one company. He's got a couple of single-leds in a company. So he's trying to sell them as different portfolios. So if you want to build up the business as an entity that you can sell on, then you might say, I'm going to get one company that just puts in all the social housing properties in the portfolio that can be sold off to someone. And that you're going to get one that's HMO. But when it comes to selling off portfolios, at times you can sell them on a brick and mortar value, which is easy, and then you can sell mixed properties. But if you want to sell on a yield basis, then it's good that all the properties in that portfolio have the same profile in terms of yield. Because like the properties that I put up on the North Circular A406, we struggle to sell it because my vendor was selling on a yield, but everyone wanted to buy on a brick and mortar. So on a brick and mortar, no one would pay as much as she was looking for. But on the yield, people will buy it, but people don't know if they can actually sustain that yield. But she would just not sell it at a brick and mortar because it's making a lot of money for her. She has about 2 flats in that building that are giving her $40,000 a year. So she just wouldn't sell it. So 2 plus 2. If you're going to put a lot of properties together and have them as 2 plus 2 and then sell them as a yield, it will blow away the brick and mortar value for the property themselves. So, so I think that's a perspective to look at.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Okay, is there anyone else in the audience? So got about 5 more minutes to just network. Okay, there's someone hands up. All right, Yogesh, I don't know if your hand is up from before, but I'm going to put it on the panel so you can let us know if it's from before you have some. Okay, Anna's got the hand. Yogesh?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. Maybe one for Mike, maybe one for the mortgage broker. Hi, Mike. What I was wondering is, do you know anyone who offers a service whereby, you can go through my property portfolio, and if there's any enhanced strategy that can be done, we can do like a joint venture. So I don't want to learn it or personally or do it, but I'm happy to share the profit with someone else who's got the expertise. Can you do that, or do you know anyone who would do that in London?
It's in London. If I remember correctly, around Croydon? Is it sort of
Croydon, Bromley area.
Yeah. I mean, I used to do portfolio reviews, but the bit is the implementing. I would have to think if there's someone in my network who I've trained up would be interested in doing it on that basis. But I'm sure, I'm sure if I went out to people who I've trained and said, look, here's an opportunity to make some money, I'm sure there would be some people who might be interested in that. If you operate in the Croydon area, if they're around that area and want to make some money by helping to implement the strategies.
I'll send you an email.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. And then the question for the mortgage broker I had was damp surveys. So I've had a mortgage valuation done, and the surveyor wanted a damp report done. I've never had that come back to me before. It's a residential property house. I was just wondering, what typically happens when is it something to worry about? Is there an easy workaround? Is there a general rule? Is it completely dependent on the surveyor and his mood when they ask for these things? And the damp report, can it be done by a general builder? Or does it have to be done by someone with specific qualifications?
On mute, Bob.
Yeah, I suggest you call a company called Kenwood. They do free surveys. They'll do a nice little drawing as well, let you know where the damp is, whether it's rising or penetrating. But from a lending perspective, if it's deemed to be so bad that your property would be unsafe for letting, they probably will decline the advance. But if it's minor, less than sort of £5,000 work, what they could do is do a retention on the mortgage offer. And as soon as you've done the work, provided the guarantees by Kenwood or another accredited firm, then they'll release that money back to you. So, but it's in your best interest to sort it out. Don't ignore it, obviously, because damp can damage the property long term more than what you can see, with the naked eye. So where is the damp? Is it ground floor, first floor?
It is a bit on the first floor, a bit on the ground floor. It's probably mainly condensation.
Yeah.
And there are people living in the property right now. So I do think the survey's gone a bit overboard, but
it happens.
Kenwood, Kenwood. It's funny you say Kenwood. I've had Kenwood out before. I think they also go overboard with stuff because I know they want the work. So
I was about to say the Kenwood's great because they come and identify what's wrong with your property.
But then you get to them.
But then two things. One, obviously, they are as you say, they over egg things. So if you want to provide it to a mortgage company where you're trying to play things down, they're the wrong people to get out. So they are free. Also, their quote is going to be high because generally they're high quotes. But what I would do if it was my building and the mortgage wasn't involved, I'd get Kenwood out to identify it. Then I would go to a builder who can also give me the right relevant insurance-backed guarantees that you need. And they can do it for a fraction of the price because the work is not complex. But the main thing is to get an insurance-backed guarantee, not just a guarantee from the builder saying I'm doing it, because the builder could go bust. So it needs to be a proper insurance-backed guaranteed. And then that is then there for 10 years or whatever the length of that is. And you can claim against that even if you can't get hold of the builder in 5 years' time, which with building companies, they morph and change. So that's it. But I guess the problem you've got is for the mortgage company. So you need to get someone who's qualified to have a look at it. So it might be a builder. If you've got a friendly builder who is qualified for damp, might be an idea as well.
Yeah.
And sort of say, look, can you play it? You know, I just want the minimum possible so you don't get a retention, which is really what it is. But if it is condensation, it's condensation. And therefore, if you're trying to play it down, before the guy goes in, I would go in myself and wipe down all the condensation, try and get rid of it, you know, and make sure that there isn't any trace of mold. You can, you know, just get it off, wipe the mold, and you could even paint it a couple of days beforehand, and it shouldn't be there when the guy turns up, if that's what you're trying to do. So just work out what your objective is and follow the actions accordingly, really. But yeah, I've used Kenwood myself several times, especially when there's a problem I can't seem to solve. They're good for that.
Well, they're both. Thank you both. They're really good tips, so I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. I think we just hit 10 o'clock, which I think will probably be bedtime. I don't know if anyone else is here. Is there anyone else with a quick last comment? I've seen quite a few people that I know here that should have a lot to share, but I think they're all shy. Like for today, they're keeping quiet, so we could do that. Just so my one of the things, I mean, I do a lot of acquisition on behalf of clients. So usually we only share the good things, but I had a property agreed for a client to buy for $550. The property was on the market for about $625, and I went between the buyer and the seller like 101 times. Finally agreed at $550. Just a day before we actually due to actually push the deal through, the buyer snowballed to $540, and needless to say, the vendor was very angry and walked away. And usually, of course, it didn't happen. Then I got a different deal in HA3. This one was in NW9 in HA3. Agreed for one of my very good. She's actually spoken a lot on our platform, speaking to train about BRR. I agreed a deal for her for $450, and I think just as I sent through all the paperwork to get the salesman done by the agents that were selling it, they kept saying they were busy, they were doing a week, and yeah, when they came and say, oh, they want 10K more, and of course she didn't want to pay, so that fell through. And the moral of the story here is for us middle consultants, we have all the responsibility but very little authority. At times, you know, when the deal goes right, the people that were doing the deal, they're happy. If it goes wrong, we get the blame. But however, we still keep going. So if any of you are looking at buying a property in auction, and of course, one of the things I want to share as well, I was buying a property for a client in a very massive, a great high yielding property in Coventry. So great, fantastic deal. Property has been converted into 5 flats. And then I checked it. I didn't see the planning permission, and I called the council. We discovered that I didn't have planning, and the person had bought it not long ago, and they were selling it probably because they found that it didn't. So that fell through. So yeah. So when you see us medium people, we are always so busy, but not every time that we get paid. And the way I tend to say, we're like those guys in Trafalgar Square that perform acrobatics, and then the whole crowd comes when they're performing. At times when it comes to payment, people kind of like walk away. But yes, but we enjoy performing, and I enjoy property all the time. But you know, there are bumps. There are lots of things that I've actually gone through, auction sales, but I decided to share the ones that haven't gone well my way today. So so on that note, I'd like to thank you all for making it here today to listen to this great presentation by Mike. Tomorrow you all get a call from Mike's PA or RT just to get some feedback from yourselves, and maybe invite you to take the right action. So please do keep your lines open to speak to Sarah and RT tomorrow, first thing in the morning tomorrow. So Mike, Bob, Angelene, thank you all for coming, and to our audience that came up on the panel and shared what they're doing, we'd like to thank you, and we look forward to having you back on the platform very soon. So on that note, I would say thank you and good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. Good night.